thank you to Spotify for that little intro. All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome to The Webline, a podcast about Spider-Man and his amazing world. Here we discuss all aspects of our favorite web slinger in a fun, informal, but informative forum. I am your humble host, the Spidey Librarian, and today, the month of October begins. That officially makes it spooky season, one of my favorite times of the year. And as much as I'm going to have, and as such, I'm going to have some more or less spook themed episodes for you this month. For this week's episode, I am joined by Aaron Garcia, a horror movies aficionado, kaiju observer, and fellow Spider-Man fanatic. He is also going by Spider Dad on his StreamYard here. And we're going to talk about some of the creepier, scary, more terrifying villains from Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery. Aaron, how are you doing today?
I am doing good. I'm doing really good. Glad
Yeah.
to be on the show. I've listened to a few of the episodes, especially the Spider-Verse episodes y'all did when you'll break it down, the characters and the story and everything. So
Oh, that was a fun
uh,
one to do.
that was. Uh, so yeah, I'm a fan of the show, fan of Spider-Man itself, and yeah, happy to be on here.
Oh, well, I'm very, very glad to hear that. And just a real quick aside here. My very first episode of the show is actually like it's wrong, kind of like from the title on in. Because I think it's something like from video games to like the present day, like the beginning of the Spider-Verse and everything. And one of my guests on that show, Michael, had basically said, "Well, the very first instance, that you can draw it all back to was the animated series." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm trying to demonstrate a chain link here." I did some research and found out that one of the writers of Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, where I thought the link began, was
Hmm.
actually a writer in the animated series cartoon. So it actually does go back a little further. Now, I don't know if he worked on any of those like dimensional Spider-Man episodes, but
Hmm.
I was like, wow, okay, I'm wrong. So so you'll learn all types of things. But I
You
am
do.
really excited to have you here. Uh, Aaron and I know each other mostly. We're mostly kind of Facebook friends. We kind of met online, and he did some work on a con that I was probably kind of working on, and so. But I've seen a lot of his posts. We're definitely both Spider-Man fans, kind of dyed in the wool. He definitely loves horror movies, as I do, but I don't really wear it as much as you do. I don't think I wear it quite as
Wow.
well as you do. So but yeah, I'm really excited that you're here for this first kind of Spooktober episode. So
Yes. Yeah, I'm a big fan of horror movies. I think what got me into it was not necessarily the aspect of the horror, like just genre, but I remember walking by my local grocery store, the magazine section, and there was a magazine that had this really cool looking creature on the front of it, and that got my attention. And I saw it, I'm
okay,
like, oh, that looks really cool. What is that? I picked it up and started reading it, and it was an issue of Fangoria. And then
I
as
remember Fangoria.
I'm like going through the pages, I'm like, these designs, these are movies. These are real things. These aren't just. This isn't pictures like or art. These are costumes. These are movie stills.
Yep.
And I had to watch that movie. And then there's a sequel. And then there's a recommendation. And then there's a catalog that goes along with that movie. So that kind of suckered me into it. And the funny thing is that that picture that originally got my interest was it was a picture of the UK kaiju film Gorgo, and I'm like,
Okay.
what is that? And so that's what got me to read. I looked into it. I looked in the magazine. There's all these cool monster like model kits and pictures from movies and all these things. Like I have to watch everything. I have to watch all this. And then you go to that horror section of your local video store. That shows how old I am. Video store, and you brave that horror section and you just find some cool box art. And the
hmm
box art got me. And then I started renting anything and everything that my parents would let me rent. And it just snowballed from there. So,
My I don't know if this was my first experience with horror. It was certainly my most formative experience with horror. But I remember seeing the Fangoria magazines too, and I remember
yes.
looking at those and going, "Whoa, that's creepy and awesome," and I love it. Um, did you ever read the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark books?
Yes, I read all 3 of those, and, I think it was, like, maybe about 10 years ago whenever there's that threaten to redo the art
Oh,
that
and
was inside of them,
they did
and they
redo
did
the
do
art.
it.
Hmm.
So that got me to go back in eBay and to Half Price Books search to find all the original 3 trilogy.
Yeah.
And I've got 2 of the originals. First 1 and 2 are the original. Unfortunately, at the time, I was only able to find part 3 in travel edition size, so it's like the smaller pocketbook size,
Right,
but I
right.
have it. So I have all 3 with the original art. So,
I have the treasury, and yeah, that artwork scared the crap out of me as a kid, and I loved it for it. You know, Stephen Gamble,
and yeah, he's
dude.
good.
Yeah.
He's good. And funny enough, the one artwork that freaked me out the most in that whole book library, that set, was the spider one with like the spider coming out of the girl's face. That
Oh,
artwork.
yes. Yes, I remember. I remember. That is an excellent, that's one of those images that you do not easily forget.
No, you do not.
For me, it was, and I'm not talking about Ben Grimm here. I'm talking about The Thing, though. It was,
Yeah,
and it was just this image of like a dude's kind of corpseified face just looking right at you.
yeah.
And I remember like that gave me nightmares. I was like, whoa, whoa. I would not like to, I would not like to see him in front of me all of a sudden, you know?
Oh, definitely,
So,
definitely. That work is always amazing. I love it.
yeah, but yeah, no. So I mean, so I would say that we are both you know, fairly at least from a fairly young age, we've been exposed to the horror genre. We enjoy
Hmm.
it. And we're both Spider fans, so I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Uh
Yes.
Be sure to subscribe to the Webline on your favorite podcast service and leave us a like, review, and a follow where appropriate. If you're on a service that doesn't carry the Webline, let me know by shooting me an email at spideylibrarian@gmail.com, and I'll do what I can to get it pushed out to you. And finally, for those of you here on the live stream with us today, please be sure to thwip the like button and chime in with your perspectives in chat. Also, since it's spooky season, for those of you with us here in the live stream, please especially feel free to share with us the Spider-Man villains you think are scariest. Uh, for those of you listening at a later date, sound off in the comments with the villains that you think are the most horrific and why they stand out for you. But before we do a daring dive into our timely topic, it's time to dish on the latest spiderific developments with our knockout news segment, The Bugle News Flash. For our first item, Spider-Man 2, that game that I won't stop talking about, the one that's coming out on October 20th, which cannot get here soon enough. I swear to you guys, as soon as that game drops, I'm going to be streaming it like all weekend. And I have dedicated an episode of the Webline that Sunday as a reaction and review of the game. And I actually will have a guest with me that day. I'm not going to reveal who it is just yet, but I actually do have a guest with me on that episode. I'm really looking forward to it. However, the last couple of days, spoilers for Spider-Man 2 have started to hit the internet. Essentially, what has happened is that the trophies list has been released for the game. And I think most of the non-hidden trophies are fine, but the hidden trophies apparently contain a lot of narrative twists and surprises that would definitely count as spoilers. I myself have not seen this list. I do not want to see this list. I don't want to see anything that Insomniac has not already put out. So all I have to say about it is, you know, please don't spoil surprises for other gamers. Insomniac actually has spoken out about that on their Instagram account, saying, "Hey, we've worked really hard to ensure a good kind of narrative, game-driven experience for our gamers here. So please don't be the person that does that." And I don't know, this kind of touches on an issue that like I've never I do have kind of like on my live streams, Aaron. I have this non-spoiler kind of policy, and
Hmm.
what I do is I usually will put a time limit on it. So like if there's like a movie or something like that, I would say that don't talk about it for at least like 6 months. Like don't get into
Okay.
it into the details for like 6 months. Um, After that, like I'm just kind of like whatever. And I made special exceptions for Across the Spider-Verse because, if you're listening to a Spider-Man podcast, it's like I'm gonna give you about 2 months before I won't spoil it without big
Okay.
labels or something. But after that, like, why are you listening to this podcast? But like, have you ever had it happen? Like this happened to me with The Force Awakens, where and there will be spoilers for what, a 7, 8 year old movie at this point. Um,
Hmm.
but essentially, the night before I was going to go see it, I was on Facebook and someone had posted a video or a GIF of Kylo Ren like putting the lightsaber through Han Solo. And
Uh,
I
yeah.
was pissed. I was mad. And then I went to the movie the next day, and of course that's exactly what happened. And I was like livid. I wanted to like I wanted to wring the neck of whoever had done that, which of course I can't do. Has anything like that ever happened to you, and how's it made you feel?
Actually, yeah, same franchise.
Okay.
Okay, so I wear a lot of t-shirts. If you follow me on my Instagram, I'm always wearing graphic t-shirts. Big fan of that. I subscribe to
Right.
a lot of the graphic t-shirt companies. There's a shirt company called T Fury that do a design a day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Star Wars, the Rise of Skywalker, the final one in the trilogy, right? Era was getting hyped. Who's Ray's parents? Who does Ray belong to? There's all the speculation. T Fury, the day of the release of that
Oh
movie,
no.
posted their shirt that had Palpatine that says "World's Greatest Grandpa," and underneath it is like on the mug it says "From Ray," and they sold that as is. I
Oh
got
my God.
I got the email at 9 a.m. in the morning. So
Oh, I imagine there was some backlash there.
people got pissed. So what
Yeah.
they did going forward was they would release a shirt that morning and say, and the image would be fuzzy black, like staticky black. It says "click for spoiler," but they wouldn't tell you what franchise it's referencing. They would just say "click for spoiler"
Oh,
going forward. And they
oh,
got in trouble for that because people were like, "Well, which movie is it? Which
yeah,
spoiler is it? Because
yeah.
you're not being clear enough. What franchise, what movie." But I remember that happening, and so many people were pissed about that. They were pissed at of that twist, and then also because T Fury just
Because they spilled the tea.
they, they,
Yeah.
they spilled it. Yeah. So,
It actually happened to me with No Way Home too.
oh wow.
Like the Thursday that I was about to go see the movie, that first day,
Yeah.
how movies now basically premiere on Thursdays.
Yeah.
I was on YouTube and my recommended feed throws out a thumbnail from the movie
Hmm.
that actually is linked to a video that says Spider-Man No Way Home, Aunt May's death.
Oh, that okay, that one. Okay,
And
that spoiler.
I was like, I was like, well, it's been spoiled. I took a look just to see like the quality of it, and it was someone who had like gone into the theater and recorded the movie ahead of time, and
Yeah.
it was on, like it was unsteady footage, and everything. And then I closed it like just after a few seconds and I reported the account. I'm like, if you're someone that does that, you're doing it just to get engagement,
Just to get
and
attention.
and
Yeah.
you do not deserve to have your account. So
No.
I just reported them. I don't know if it did anything, but I was mad enough to actually do that. So, no
No, I thought you're
spoilers,
for that movie. I thought you were referencing the other spoilers that happened with that movie as well. with the three Peters.
Oh, well, I mean, we've been hearing about that forever as
We heard rumors.
speculation.
We
Yes.
heard rumors, but
Yes.
nothing was confirmed.
Nothing was confirmed. So I didn't know one way going in. Like at that point, I just avoided YouTube for the rest of the day. And yeah, no, I was as surprised as everyone else. So that at
So
least,
so
was
are you
was
allowed? So are we allowed to talk about rumors on this show or no?
you talk about rumors.
Okay.
If they, if they are unconfirmed, but
Mm-hmm.
people are talking about it, then that's okay. But like for,
Okay.
if it's confirmed, if it's, like if Insomniac has, basically, you know, I, I don't know.
Okay.
They can say a lot of things, but there's certain things I'm not going to talk about. Like
Well.
one of the big things right now in Spider-Man 2, the game, is who is
Mhm.
Venom, because it's apparently
Yeah.
not Eddie Brock. And so like I put out a theory video saying that Peter Parker would make a good Venom. And then
Hmm.
other people are saying it's Harry Osborn. Other people are saying it's this person or that person. That's fine. But I don't want to talk about like if people know who Venom is at this point, I don't want to know. Don't tell me. I want to find out through the course of gameplay, you know.
Okay. Well, because we talked earlier, but then we went on break.
Mhm.
A rumor popped up on my feed because Toy Fair is happening this weekend,
Okay.
and one of the you have all the companies out there. You have McFarlane Toys out there promoting. You got
Right.
Hasbro. You got
Right.
all these toy companies out there, and one of the announcements regarding toys and everything was Loki season 2 figures.
Okay.
And because this is a Spider-Man podcast, there was a set of 7 figures
Okay.
with 3 of them shadowed out to be TBD later.
Oh boy.
And when asked about one of the shadowed characters, because one Spider-Man has been asked, "Are we gonna get another movie with this Spider-Man?"
I think I know who
And
you're talking about. Go
and
ahead.
that person said that, "Well, we can't say who these figures are, but it's possible that somebody will be in their civilian clothes repping that figure." And they said, "Well, is it this person?" And they're like, "Nah." "Is it this person?" "Well, no." "Is it this person?" The guy was like, "We can't say, we can't deny or confirm, we can't
Yeah,
say anything."
yeah, like you have to play that game earlier. You have to be like, I can't tell you. I can't tell you. You can't say no because then you're
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Wow.
the heavy rumor for the show, at least,
Hmm.
along with the figures, is Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, I actually read that somewhere earlier too. That it's possible that he might show up, and that's very cool. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's a rumor, you know.
It is a
Um,
rumor.
it is a rumor, and I mean, I can always find a clip of Andrew Garfield saying, "I'm not the werewolf," you know. But but yeah, no, that's fine, and yeah, no, I saw that earlier too. Um, Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is also going to feature a wide range of accessibility options, which I think is really nice. I'm a big video game nerd. I've been playing video games since I was like 5 years old. I don't care to think about how many decades that is for me. But um but I do like the idea that people who, for instance, may not have both hands, um, still may be able to enjoy these kinds of experiences that you and I can. And, I mean, on a slightly more selfish note, I mean, there may come a time in my life I might get injured or I just might get really, really old, and it's just like I like knowing that there's a movement out there that is trying to make sure that these kind of experience can be enjoyed by
Hmm.
people of all walks. What Insomniac is doing is that, among other things, I'm not going to go through the whole list, but for instance, they're going to be implementing some challenge level modifiers. So, maybe reducing opponent damage and things like that, widening the windows through which you can hit the dodge or parry buttons and stuff like that. And then there's also it's going to be compatible with this access controller that they're going to be putting out in December. And I've seen this thing. I've seen it. It looks like a trackball, and it's set into this kind of circular interface that has like kind of button inputs and stuff for it. And my understanding is that it's um you can actually like change out the buttons. You can actually like kind of move it around like in a three-dimensional, like change the shape of it and everything. It looks really cool. I don't know if I'm ever going to use it, but like I was taking a look at it and I'm like, wow, this looks really interesting and modular for people that might need one setup versus another. And I don't know. I just think stuff like that is awesome, and that I hope they keep doing stuff like this. You have any thoughts on it?
That sounds really cool. Um, I do remember like a few years ago, Xbox released a commercial, their whole campaign of anybody can play. And I remember the
Okay.
commercial had like there's a child with a disability in a wheelchair, and I believe they were missing an appendage, but they were able to play and use a controller to play. But the whole hype was basically this child was about to beat a game or set a record or do something to where all his friends were showing up in support to cheer him on as he did, the unthinkable and say either set a record or beat a game. But the whole point was to showcase a controller that this kid was able to use to do that. And it had like a little, like a, it had like a trackpad, like a touchpad, and it had like the rolling ball that he was using as well. And this was a few years ago, and I remember it, and I was thinking that's a really cool idea. That's a really cool campaign and format to really push behind video gaming
Yeah.
that everybody can play.
No, absolutely. And again, like I love stuff like that. I enjoy the hell out of games and gaming in
Hmm.
general. And so I really like the idea that, some little kid or just some person with a disability
Yeah,
is going to have that option because of these innovations. And that just warms my little heart. So,
it is really
um,
cool.
from the world of the comics, just this Wednesday, there's a new Spider-Man in town, guys, and his name is Kurt Wagner. Nightcrawler is the uncanny Spider-Man, and I haven't followed the X-Men too closely lately, but from what I understand, mutants are basically now all in hiding. Apparently, during the most recent Hellfire Gala, they this mutant hate group called Orcus staged essentially a terrorist attack on it and killed off some X-Men, and essentially sent mutants into hiding from the rest of the world. Apparently, Nightcrawler ain't having none of that and is going to go out, but he's going to mask up and be Spider-Man. So he's very distinctive looking. He's got a tail and everything. But apparently, one thing that Spider-Man has that apparently Nightcrawler does not is wit. Now I know that Nightcrawler can be witty when he wants to be. He might not have the easy kind of delivery of one-liners that Peter has, though. And I read like a sample page from the comic. He had just defeated someone, and he said something about you need to work on your parallel parking to some guys that he had just beaten up. I didn't see, they weren't in a parking lot or anything. They were like in a park or something. There were trees, and I'm like, yeah, he needs to work on his delivery. But that comic just came out this week, and I missed it, so I'll have to see if I can get that issue. But yeah, the Uncanny Spider-Man is out this week, and apparently he's got to work on his banter game. So, any thoughts? Do you like Nightcrawler? Do you like this idea about him being Spider-Man, Aaron?
Yes, I do like Nightcrawler. He is when I play the X-Men the arcade game, he is my go-to. Either him
Okay,
or Wolverine are my two go-tos for the arcade. Uh, been a big fan of Nightcrawler. I prefer swashbuckling Nightcrawler with the sword and the pirate hat
right.
than the normal one. So this is fun and interesting because uh, if anybody were to actually replace Spider-Man with similar abilities to a degree, you got a Nightcrawler. He can climb on walls.
Yeah,
He can kind of blend into the darkness and to the shadows. Uh, he doesn't have spider sense though, but he could teleport. So
he can
I mean,
teleport. I think one other pretty funny potential replacement or addition to the Spider-Man mythos could be Beast.
true.
I mean,
That
he's
is
big and
true.
bulky, but he's like really agile and everything. It would just be hilarious seeing him in a Spider-Man suit swinging or jumping around from building to building. I don't know.
That is true. Yeah, that would be hilarious. Beast
So,
doing it. I can only imagine it right now. Just big bulky Beast doing it, and his mask has that giant widow's peak. I'm thinking classic '90s Beast. I'm thinking classic '90s Beast with that giant widow's peak hairstyle.
yeah,
So
no, I think that would be great. But yeah, we've got Nightcrawler, and he's I don't know if he's helping out around. I think he's helping out around New York. So, of course, I'm gonna want to see him come into contact with Peter and Miles at some point. Like that's got to happen. So,
I
but
think he has done that before. I know there was that one story, the Kevin Smith story. Now I'm thinking about it. The Evil That Men Do.
well,
Nightcrawler cameoed.
yes, and yeah, and I've read that, and that's a great story. I guess what I'm talking about is like I want him to run into them as he's
Yeah,
running around as Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
You know,
That'd be interesting. That'd be
be
cool.
like, they're just kind of like, oh, hey, buddy, hi, what are you doing here? You know,
Or I could hear Peter Parker yelling out cease and desist and
right?
trademark
Yeah,
infringement.
I could see that too. That would actually be really funny. Final bit of news is from across the Spider-Verse. Recently, the Spider-Man India actor Karan Soni he's voiced some concerns about Spider-Man Beyond, and the nature of those concerns is that he is essentially worried about Beyond the Spider-Verse getting made with the same quality that the first two movies have been made. Because we've had a lot of obstacles in front of that. We've had the writers and actors strikes, which the writers strike just recently ended. So now the studios are in negotiations with the actors. So hopefully we can get things like that put behind us as well. But there were also talks about like the working conditions for animators and things like that. And so essentially he's just worried because I think he's like, we're so close to having essentially a perfect trilogy. Like we had an
Yes.
amazing first episode, an amazing second episode, and I think he really just wants the quality of the final episode to match those, and he's getting a little bit anxious about all these things going on. Now, again, since he made those statements, the writer's strike seems to have ended, at least provisionally. It looks like the actor strike is hopefully going to be next. And essentially, like I'm hopeful that we will get a quality movie in a fairly short amount of time. I mean, it was 5 years between Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse. And if
Yes.
it's another 5 years between this movie and the next, I know that ending, made people go, no, give it to us now.
Yeah.
But like, it's been done before, so I'm okay with it. I don't know. You have any thoughts on it, Aaron?
Uh, yeah, I do have some thoughts. So yeah, I hope that because of the strikes, that the delay between movies isn't grand. I remember people lost their minds when they had to wait a year from Infinity War to Endgame. They want to know what happened.
Yes, I
They had people
remember.
had to wait almost a year from the episode where Negan debuted and to find out who he killed the next season. They had to wait almost a year.
Right.
So I know people's attention spans and patience run thin when it comes to pop culture media. They want resolution. They want the next chapter. Uh,
And they want it now.
they want it now. With that actor voicing concerns, I hope that his concerns don't lead to his character having an early grave because he talked.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that concern, and I don't know. I like to think that it's coming from a place of I want this to be the best possible, and
Yes,
hopefully the powers that be will understand that. We'll
I hope
we'll
so too.
you
I hope
know
so too.
we'll see, but because I mean Pav was awesome in
He
Across the
was.
Spider Verse, so I think if they take away the character for whatever reason during that part, I think there will definitely be pushback.
Yeah,
But if we're coming up on the end of a trilogy, I mean, you never know. Like he could make a noble sacrifice and die at the end, which
he could.
these things happen. But yeah, no, I understand that concern and hope that it won't be the case either. But Time will
Hey,
tell, you know?
for part three, I just want two characters that have been missing. I want the return of Spider-Man Noir because he wasn't in part two.
And because it's Nicolas Cage.
It's Nicolas Cage. Secondly, there were rumors, there were teases, there was even a voice actor hired. We never got Japanese Spider-Man in part two.
Oh, you're right. We never did.
We didn't. And I want to see the fight where he
Oh,
calls on his mech, Leopardon, to come down, and we got that Power Ranger esque moment with Japanese Spider Man, his
right.
giant robot, and them tearing stuff up.
That would be pretty cool. Like I would totally be behind that. Let me check out chat real quick. Leia Rose has come in. Hey Leia, how you doing? Good to see you. Leia, first of all, she says hello to Spider Dad. So,
How you doing?
and she asks, who is Nightcrawler's mother? Is it Mystique or are they related? So I think it's been established that Mystique actually is
Yes.
Nightcrawler's mother. So yes,
Yes.
they are related.
Okay.
I haven't seen much of a mother-son relationship in the comics between those two, but I haven't read a lot of X-Men in these last couple of decades. I occasionally drop in for like the Hellfire Gala stuff because of all the
Yeah.
pretty costumes and stuff. But like aside from that, I haven't seen much. Have you?
So yeah, and I do know some more about Nightcrawler because again, he is he is my favorite X Men, and I read a lot of the single issues that he's done. So basically, Mystique basically tossed Kurt aside quickly after birth
Right.
because she was a mutant in hiding. He was born blue with a tail. Uh, think of like Salem witch hunts.
Yeah.
She didn't want to be a part of that, so she basically dropped her kid off to, depending on which media you read or watch. He either went to the traveling circus where he became the acrobat,
Right.
or he got dropped on the doorstep to a traveling band of a group of bandits where he used his teleportation and blending into the shadows as a way to steal and loot. So depending on which franchise, which beginnings you follow, there's that. Uh, if you saw the original X Men Origins movie, I think it was X Men Origins, the red demon looking guy, that's Nightcrawler's dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was his dad. He was established in the comics as well. I know Mystique has had a lot of kind of redacted origins, redacted love lives, changed love lives, all that throughout the decades of her being a character. But she has always been Nightcrawler's biological mom, Rogue's kind of adoptive mother.
Right.
So they've always kept that relationship throughout all of the genres of uh, the character, with the exception of the Singer X-Men movies. They didn't know how to do with that relationship because they were both around the same age in the movies.
Right. And I mean, like, I think that Mystique's age has more or less just been explained away by, well, she's a shifter. She can make herself look
She's
however she wants.
semi-immortal because of that.
Yeah. Um, and my understanding from the comics is that Mystique essentially has a closer relationship with Rogue than she does with Nightcrawler. Like, to my knowledge, there's just not much of a
Yeah.
relationship there at all. But thank you for the question, Leia Rose. Much appreciated.
Hmm.
All right, and that is all of the Spidey news for this week. Now, let's get ready for our feature segment, a Spooktober discussion of Spidey's more horrific foes. All right. Over the 60 plus years of Spider Man's existence, readers, viewers, and gamers have all seen him battle a wide variety of villains and foes. Most of them make for harrowing opponents, but there are a few who, from either their mere appearance alone, the nature of their powers, or the vicious disregard they have for anyone but themselves, make for nightmare fuel from the moment they first appear. Now, I like my scary movies, scary stories, and will even occasionally play a scary video game or two. As a side note, I'm going to put up a poll soon that you guys can choose which games I play this month to scare myself silly. But I can easily say that I've only occasionally seen some of the more horrific foes from Spider Man's career. Now, before we really get into the weird weeds of these antagonists, I want to lay out what we mean when we talk about Spidey's scary, terrifying, and creepy foes, because as a baseline, any of them can be scary. If they're coming after you, if Sandman's coming after me, I'm gonna be scared. All right. If Rhino's coming after me, I'm gonna be scared. If the chameleon is coming after me, I'm gonna be scared. But like I want to say just kind of what makes this list a bit different. So for me, it's the kind of enemy who could lend themselves by either their appearance, demeanor, or some aspect of their abilities or actions to star in their own horror film, short story, or video game. Aaron, what for you is the criteria for Spidey's foes of this type?
Ooh, so for me, they have to look scary. Presentation. They
Okay.
have to have that cool, spooky looking costume. Whether it be a crooked smile, a flaming pumpkin, you have to have something on the costume that appeals to a Halloween vibe.
Okay.
I mean, secondly, your aesthetics. I mean, you have to have that mentality of spooky. You have to have that mentality of a slasher, the mentality of something that goes bump in the night. You have to have that with your character. So I mean, that separates Electro away from this list because there's nothing spooky about Electro. I mean, except for when you need to pay, your electric bill. That's it.
Yes, in Texas, yes.
Especially in Texas, AC bills cost money.
God,
So
do they?
you got to have that. Then there's also the character development. Have they been in spooky situations? Do they bring the spooky in the storylines and in the comic series and in the art style and all of that, though, kind of mesh together? And again, separates Electro again from that thing because when it comes Halloween, he's not around. That's not
Yeah.
his time of the month.
No, it really
So,
isn't, you know. Okay. Well, so Aaron and I have we each have kind of our own lists of these types of villains. And we've agreed to do this kind of in draft format. So essentially one of us uh, picks a villain, we talk about them a little bit, and then we move on to the next one. And I mean, my list, I took a very quick gander, and I think I got a list of about 11 with a bunch of honorable mentions because
yes.
there are some honorable mentions. But as my guest, I would like you to go first. Go ahead and pick your very horrifying poison. Which character creeps you out, terrifies you?
Ooh, okay. So creeps me out, and terrifies me.
Yes.
Ooh, my first pick, if I'm going on creep factor, there's one villain that just screams Halloween just from his appearance alone.
Okay.
I mean, he flies. Sometimes he has a broomstick. Sometimes he has a hoverboard, but ultimately he's got a flaming pumpkin for a head. That's Jack O' Lantern.
Jack o' lantern.
You got Jack O' Lantern. I mean, if anybody is Halloween or is Mr. October in the Spider-Man universe, in the Marvel universe for that matter,
Yeah.
it's Jack O' Lantern.
Yeah, he's
I
not
mean,
exclusively a Spider-Man villain, but he does show up. Yeah.
he shows up quite a bit.
He's and he's so I'm not as versed in Jack o' lantern as I might otherwise be, but my understanding is that's Jason Macendale, right? Who's also been
Hmm.
the Hobgoblin.
Yes, he's been a
So
hobgoblin as well.
so so he got I'm guessing he got the pumpkin bombs from his like goblin setup. Where did the flaming head come from? Because I'm not actually familiar with that origin.
I'm not familiar with that origin as well because when I started reading that character, he was already established.
Right?
And every time I plan to go back and look at earlier issues, I get distracted by other issues I want to read instead
Yeah, I know the feeling.
because that happens.
Yes.
But I think what got me was the one issue where he's like basically on a giant spinning top that's like
Okay.
flying around,
Okay.
and then a few years later he shows up riding a broomstick, like basically the Goblin Glider but turned into a broomstick.
Well, the original Goblin glider was shaped like a
It
broomstick.
was.
Yeah.
So Jack o' Lantern has the motifs. I'm like, okay, this guy. Not the only the only reason, like I think the last 15 years, this character has been remembered is that he was part of Civil War. He went underground with Cap and his guys, and Punisher just murked him right there. That's what he's known for.
I was
Punisher
at
killing
yeah.
him in the
I,
sewer.
I I was gonna say like that is the story where that I remember reading that Jack-o'-lantern was at his most dangerous because he and
Yeah.
I think Scourge were
Yes.
about to they had tracked Spider-Man down into the sewers like right after he had fled from Tony Stark,
Yeah.
and they were just like, dude, we get to kill you and have our freedom. We're all about this, and that was just a time when I was like, Jesus God, this guy is just sadistic,
Yeah.
and then yeah, Punisher showed up and saved Spider-Man's rear end, but man, that was a harrowing scene because it looked like he was going to do it. It looked like he was
He
about to
did.
do it,
He
So,
did.
all right. Okay. So that's a good start. Definitely a good kind of mascot for this month.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm going to go from the top of my list. These are not necessarily in order, but I'm going to go ahead and just go with probably one of the more obvious ones. I remember like reading the comic in which he first appears. And I was a teenager at the time, and I had just picked up Spider-Man maybe like 3 months before that. And I remember reading this issue and going, "Oh, I'm keeping this issue because I know this guy is going to be significant." Okay,
Mm-hmm.
he's the spawn of Venom. He is a mass murderer. He is Cletus Cassidy, aka Carnage. And I remember I remember, Venom as just kind of in general, like, I mean, he's creepy too.
Yeah.
But they were really going for it with Carnage's design and his just motivation, which was he just wanted to cause chaos. He wanted to
Yeah.
kill people and drive people insane doing it. And then there's the design of his symbiote, which he just looks like he's bleeding everywhere, because of
Yes.
the red and black. He looks like he's almost like inside out in a lot of ways. And the dude can like disconnect from himself, temporarily. Like he can throw his ichor or whatever you want to call it in the shape of an axe at someone, and then it'll
Yes.
dissolve after a moment or something. Dude likes to write messages in Spider-Man in his own blood. I just remember reading that comic and going, "Whoa." um, okay, this is a different kind of foe from what I've normally seen from Spider-Man, and I know that there have been a whole lot of stories, since then that have pointed out just what a depraved and horrific type of person is behind the symbiote. What do you think of Carnage?
Well,
Well,
Carnage
Carnage
is
is
on my
on my
list
list.
that I had. Uh, yeah. My first introduction to Carnage was Spider-Man Unlimited #1. I actually had the comic,
Me
and
too.
then like everybody else who didn't play Maximum Carnage the game, who didn't play that game, you
Matt
you
Cave and
you,
I discussed that game 2 weeks ago.
who didn't play that game,
Yeah.
especially if you had the red cartridge. You had to have the red cartridge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have the red cartridge downstairs. Still have that game.
Oh man.
Um, yeah, Carnage was amazing. He's a great character. Looks like blood that shoots axes and shards. He's got the jagged teeth that are not actually teeth. They're like
Mm-hmm.
jagged symbiote parts. Uh, I mean, and then when you hear the voice for the '90s animated series, perfect, perfect.
Yeah.
I thought Carnage was always fun. I think the only time I've ever been not liking Carnage was Woody Harrelson. That's the only time I'm
I
like, ah,
wanted to
Carnage should have been
root
better.
I wanted to root for Woody Harrelson too, but there was just too much going on where it's just like, I don't know, man,
I think they cast the wrong actor for that. I
Yeah.
would have, if I was going to cast Carnage, uh, even today to a degree, I would have cast Michael C. Hall, Dexter as Carnage,
Okay. All right.
because when you watch Dexter, you see him shift between his dark passenger side to his normal side. And when he does the dark passenger side, he has the arched eyebrows. The lighting is always on spot. He looks like Cletus Cassidy. He
Ah,
looks just like him.
that actually does sound really cool.
And I think
Um,
that would have been a lot better than Woody Harrelson's kind of twangy accent that he has. Uh, so
well, I mean, the accent aside, I felt like the motivation that they gave Cletus Cassidy in Venom: There Will Be Carnage was like I was just like, this is not someone that I'm afraid of once I learn about him, you know.
yeah,
This is someone who is he's someone who needs a hug,
pretty
essentially,
much,
you know.
pretty
And I'm
much.
like, that's not Cletus Cassidy. That's not Carnage, you know. So yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from. Now, Woody Harrelson aside, what did you think
Hmm.
of the Carnage persona in the movie itself? Just like the presentation of that one.
I mean, Carnage looked great. He had like all the axes, he had the tendrils that popped out, he had all the daggers. I
Could
mean,
form holes in himself, no
yeah,
problem.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That part was great. That part was amazing.
yeah,
Anytime Carnage was actually on screen, not Cassidy, but Carnage was, yeah, that was amazing.
yeah.
I loved it.
Okay.
Looked straight out of the comic book.
Okay. I just wanted to kind of check in with you between those two.
Yeah.
So yeah, no. Okay. All right. What's another terrifying villain on your list, Aaron?
Ooh, my pick. Okay, so I'm
Yeah.
gonna go kind of new day with this one.
Okay.
This one's kind of a newer uh, character that really only had, to my knowledge, only has one appearance, but was great for the aspect, like the aesthetics of this character.
Okay.
So everybody hates One Moment at a Time. I get that. Brand New Day, I thought was great because it introduced a lot more villains that we
Yeah.
could have gone with.
Yeah.
And my next pick had the character development of the stalker fan. This character stalked
I know who it is.
celebrities,
Yes, I know who it is.
and when they interacted with said celebrities, this character basically dehydrated them enough to where they became paper cutouts. And it became a detective story, a Spider-Man detective story.
Yep.
So my next character on the spooky list is Paper Doll, the stalker
Love it.
fanatic that went after celebrities, that
Love
had
it.
that
Yes.
that mindset of all celebrities are my friends. I'm friends with everybody. I'm friends to the end. And if they reject me, they're dead. They're straight up
Love
just
it.
dead.
I
They're
love it.
paper.
No,
And
I so Brand New Day. So yeah, I hated One More Day and will probably hate it until the day I die. And so after One More Day, I kind of hate read Brand New Day, you know.
hmm
And I remember reading it and I just remember thinking, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks, you know. Looking back on it though, I mean like, oh my God, some of those villains were excellent, you know.
yeah,
I
they
really I
were.
really loved and Paper Doll is an excellent example. Like the, I feel like a lot of those Brand New Day villains, with the possible exception of Mr. Negative, who is
hmm
awesome too.
Yeah,
But like a lot of them, they just like they had their one or two appearances and then they just like disappeared,
yeah, they then
you know?
disappeared.
And that's really sad to me because like I mean, some of them I thought had a whole hell of a lot of potential. I've got another one on
Hmm.
my list too. But but yeah, Paper Doll, who actually was not on my list, but when you think about Paper Doll and what she can do,
Yeah,
and especially like, can you imagine trying to like put her in a live action movie and then trying to like animate her paper doll movements?
yeah.
Like that is making me a bit squicked out right now just as I think about it because that's got to be, oh, that's got to be
I
some
mean,
really janky
if they
movements,
if they brought her back in like the current comic continuity where she's now hero envy, she has hero envy, and she's going after heroes because she loves them, like kind of like what
Okay.
Miss Marvel's doing, like kind of what the MCU Miss Marvel's doing, where she's like emulating Captain Marvel, emulating a lot of the other heroes that she likes,
Okay.
but you do that with a villain who can basically dehydrate people and turn them into pieces of paper.
God.
That would be a crazy cool story. I mean, you can kind of get rid of some of the lesser name hero vigilantes
Right.
to kind of set up her threat level.
Hmm.
But doing that now, that would be an amazing story if they were to go through with that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And again, like I do collect the comics and I'm trying to read them. you know, who has time for anything anymore these days? But like,
True.
but like, so I was not aware that they had done anything with paper dolls since Brand New Day. I'm glad to hear that they have. But like, really, I kind of like am you know, I want characters like her to have more of their own day, if you will. So I'm glad to hear that. Um, but yeah, like, you know, if you think about her origins, like her very first story, she's stalking the guy that MJ is dating at that point, right? He's
Yeah.
like some actor, you know, and she's like trying to get into his mansion, and you know, Peter's trying to stop her and manages to like didn't she like grab his arm and like dehydrate like just like his
Yeah.
hand
Just
or
his hand.
something?
Yeah, just his hand.
And God, that must have been excruciating. Like, oh man. I'm glad he was able to come back from that, because like that that strikes me as like an instant kill attack, pretty much, you know. So
Yeah, I think it was like her first victim was like a soap opera star, and that guy's like date for the night. And she got jealous because her favorite actor was dating somebody else and rejected
of
her.
course, right,
So
yeah.
so she took them both out. But the difference was that with the lady of the night, she like ripped that paper in half. She like shredded that paper up. So that person couldn't come back.
Oh God, yeah.
And then she took out the bodyguard of MJ's boyfriend. And that's whenever Spider-Man was trying to intervene before she reached MJ. And you have that one shot of like MJ looking out the window as Spider-Man like swings off with police in the thing, where
Right.
there's that missed opportunity of them reconnecting after one moment in time.
Yeah. No, it's again, that, I mean, yeah, she is definitely on the creep she's high on the creep factor scale, like for a number of
Definitely.
reasons. So no, that's a really, really good pick. And again, so far both of your picks, they weren't even on my radar. So I'm very impressed so far. All right, so
Thank you.
for my second pick, we mentioned Brand New Day, so I'll go ahead and continue the theme here. Um, is a Brand New Day villain who just kind of is he's like a nameless character. He he was just the part of the reason that what happened to him is because he was looking for he was looking like he was a drug addict. He was looking for his next fix. And he ended up getting this horrifying, we're just going to call it a mutation for the time being, change to his
Okay.
body.
I know who it is.
And yeah, no, and his name is Freak. And he, if you take a look at any illustration of this guy, you'll understand why he has that name. And really, um, he's an addict with superpowers, and he's got this very kind of like he looks terrible. I mean, like
Yeah.
his face is deformed. He looks almost like a hulking version of a rotting corpse, essentially. He's got like muscles and tendons like on the outside of his skin. His eyes look like they might be falling out of his body. No matter what form he takes, and the terrifying thing about Freak, a couple of them really, but one is his power. Dude has an adaptive mutation where if you kill him with fire, he goes into a cocoon and he comes back and he's fireproof. You shoot him with a gun, he goes into a cocoon, and then he comes back and he's essentially bulletproof. He's got like bulletproof plating on him. So his appearance keeps changing. That's one thing. And
Yeah.
then two, we have no idea who this guy is. Like as far as I
No.
know, his he's never been identified. He was just like a random drug addict dude who was looking for a fix. And I don't. It's been forever since I've read his origin, but I think he was exposed to some chemicals because he was looking for drugs,
Yeah,
essentially,
something like that. Yeah.
and basically they mutated him into this, and he he got on Spider-Man's radar, and Spider-Man's taken him out a couple of times, and then, kind of like Paper Doll, nothing. Like,
I
you
think his
know,
ending was that like Osborn injected him with something that would keep counteracting his ability and keep him in a
really,
coma, and then Osborn took him away. And
really,
then that was because I think this was after this was after Civil War or Secret Invasion, where Osborn was like president or head of Shield, or he was in a
yeah.
higher thing, and he basically took Freak away, and then we never heard from him again.
Well, I bet that's gonna come back at some point. At least I hope so, you
I
know.
hope so too, because that was a I know that was Marvel's answer to Doomsday, because Doomsday has a similar power set. So if
Right,
you kill Doomsday in a certain way, his body mutates or forms like a anti-kill to whatever you killed him with.
right. You know
Same
who,
format.
else he reminds me of?
Hmm.
Guess, and because you seem to be more into X-Men than I am, and so he's from the X-Men family. Any
Oh,
guess?
Darwin.
Yes, Darwin. Who like has basically he has it's not it's an adaptive mutation, but it's also more instantaneous, I think.
Yeah, I guess a defensive mutation where it's
Yeah, a
all elusive.
defensive mutation. And it's really funny to me because he's another one of those characters that they kind of put on a bus. Like he just
Yeah.
is, he is gone now, you know. And I really wonder why, because like, it's just interesting that people with this particular power set are
Hmm.
not around much. And like to me, they kind of present these really unique writing challenges. Like, how do
They
you
do.
consistently use this person and not paint yourself or write yourself into a corner with them? And so, like I understand from like a meta perspective, that's probably why Freak is not around. But
But from a writer's perspective, you have to have a really good start and end point to this character
yes,
to take him
yes,
away for a while,
yes,
because he was. I remember whenever he came out, people were talking about him like, "Oh, this is Marvel's Doomsday. This is this and this," but he's fighting Spider-Man. He's not fighting Superman, and people were
right,
into it.
yeah,
And he's gone.
yeah. And I mean, I was too. I was like, oh, okay, all right, this guy is interesting. I remember, again, even as I was hate reading Brand New Day at the time, I
Yeah,
was like, okay, he's pretty interesting. I like this, you know. But yeah, no, I would like to see more of Freak, especially around October when whenever it's Spooktober month, I'd like to see him in the comics. So,
okay.
all right, who's your third pick?
Here's my third.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm looking at my list now. Okay, here's a character that looks creepy. He was actually this character was actually in the first Spider-Man graphic novel I remember picking up and reading
Okay.
that I bought, and the how ferocious this character was. This character beat the hell out of Spider-Man on his own turf, just through animal instinct, just tore Spider-Man apart,
Okay.
and so much so that
I think I know who it
other
is.
people had to come and rescue him because he was beat to hell. And
Can I take a guess?
guess,
Vermin?
Vermin. It is Vermin.
Oh, yes. He was on my list actually.
I
So,
mean, Craven's Last Hunt was an
yes.
amazing story. Uh, and even he was even in McFarlane's Torment, where he was the ploy of just whooping Spider-Man when Calypso was summoning animal instincts
Right.
everywhere. And Vermin has always, as far as I have read, one of the few characters that when they've gone toe to toe with Spider-Man has just mopped the floor with him.
Mm-hmm.
The animal instinct just mops the floor with Spider-Man.
Yep.
Uh, whenever you're in that cornered into a put into a corner type of mentality, no wit, no smarts, no counterattack is going to beat animal instinct. And
I want to do a list of like villains who like pound for pound, if you put them one on one against Spider-Man and he doesn't have the ability to swing around, it's just a frickin' fight.
yeah,
Like who you might actually put money on instead of Spider-Man. And
yeah,
Vermin is definitely one of those. He's he and really, I mean, for a dude who essentially he looks like he just looks like a humanoid rat
He's Splinter.
essentially.
He's
You know,
Splinter without ninja training.
yeah, and apparently he don't need it.
He
You
doesn't need
know,
it.
but like I mean, dude, like like did they make him? Did they make him a cannibal?
They did later on. He started
They did
eating
later
more.
on. Okay.
They did later on.
Yeah, because the dude's got claws. I don't know
Yeah.
if he has I don't know if he has fangs, but
He's got claws. He's got night vision. He can climb on the ceiling. Uh, his tail is stronger than his regular arms and legs. So they've
he's yeah.
they've really upped him up to be a bigger threat than just a rat guy.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, no. And for my money, Vermin, I mostly remember from Craven's Last Hunt, which is a very, I mean, I would say that's a pretty haunting story too.
Yeah.
Because in a lot of ways, I mean, you've got the visual of Spider-Man getting just buried alive, which
Yeah.
that terrifies me on an instinctive level too. But like, the idea that Craven actually like beat him, like not only buried him, but also put on his costume and defeated a foe that he couldn't. And that
Right.
was that was just like wow. Like that is a really good story that I hope they adapt for a movie.
Yeah.
Maybe for this game that's coming up because Craven is in it. So
Craven is
um
in it.
yeah. But yeah, no, that's an awesome pick. And again, I would like to see more of Vermin. I would like to see more of these freaky ass like,
Yeah. I mean,
horror villains.
I mean, Vermin lives in the sewers or lives in the alleyways, wherever he can
Wherever
kind of
we need
hide
him
from
to.
people.
Yeah.
Wherever he's kept to. Yeah, he eats scraps. He eats people. He pieces of people. He is like just a ferocious little guy.
Yes.
And the fact that this guy who's basically the size of Wolverine just mollywopped Spider-Man multiple times uh, is crazy. It's crazy, but always
It
a creep factor.
it is. But yeah, no, you're right. And I mean like just the way he talks too. Like
Yeah.
is ooh, okay, all right, dude. Yeah, I'm gonna give you a large berth. All right. So for my next pick, and I'm skipping over a couple of here. But I want to talk about one whose story I have not actually read, but whose appearance and the summation of his story, he was like a one-shot villain.
Okay.
Um, and he's called the Thousand. And the Thousand is essentially, I think he was made for like a one-shot story, essentially.
Okay.
And he is a former bully of Peter Parker's, like even worse than Flash Thompson, like a guy that caused pain to people just to do it, essentially.
Okay.
And in the story, he apparently gains knowledge that Peter got the powers of Spider-Man through his spider bite. And he gets really jealous and essentially is like, well, how come this nerd gets all this, you know,
Hmm.
why does he deserve it? Dude goes and finds the spider that bit Peter, eats it, and then basically basically turns into 1,000 spiders that can all like form into his body. It's
Oh,
like his
okay.
body is now like a mask for these like 1,000 spiders. Okay, and essentially, he gains, I believe, a lot of Spider-Man's like abilities too. And the ability to like swarm people. I mean, if you have arachnophobia, stay the hell away from this guy.
Hmm.
And essentially, if even one of his spiders is alive, then he can come back essentially.
Yeah.
Now, in the story, I don't remember what happened because again, I've just read a summary of it, but essentially, like this guy, like all of his spiders got squashed, and I can't remember. Like I think he got smashed by a piece of heavy machinery, and he just
Hmm.
nothing survived essentially. But like, yeah, dude who can basically turn into all these spiders and overwhelm you, or just he lives to inflict pain on people. Guy was just a bully who wanted to hurt people and found a way to do it when the person that he used to be the object of his bullying uh got the means to defend himself. He's like, no, I'm gonna continue to bully him. And it was, I don't know, like, just the whole idea of it is really freaky. And I think if you wanted to make a horror movie, this guy would be a good candidate.
Wasn't that a multiverse character from the Morlon series?
Was he?
Or I think he might have been.
I don't know, actually. He might have been, like, he probably had been around since then, but if we're talking, like, are you talking about Spider-Verse?
Yeah, Spider-Verse, like the Spider-Verse
So
series.
a version of him certainly could have featured. I don't know if
Okay.
that was actually him, but at this point, anything is possible. But yeah, like, this guy is someone who he has a link to Peter Parker,
Yeah.
and then I mean, finds the spider and eats it. I'm just like, okay, wow. And then because he does that, he just essentially becomes the swarm of spiders. Like, ugh, God, like, I'm getting creeped out just thinking about it. Anyways, but like, he was originally intended as just like this one shot villain that I guess they wanted to tell this story with, and then they killed him off. But you know how comics work. You can bring back anybody if you try hard
That is
enough.
true.
So,
That is true.
but
Uh, so is it my turn or?
yes, yes, it is.
Okay, so playing off that character, my next character is actually similar to yours.
Okay. I
And
think I know who it is.
this character, again, I was introduced to this character because of 90s action figures,
Yep.
Spider-Man.
I think I know who it is.
And it looked really cool. And then then we had like 90s art, like Joe Mad and Eric
Hmm.
Larson.
Yes.
The way they drew this character is really cool. I actually thought this was a different character at first, but because of the same color scheme. But it's like, oh, this is different. Um, you can't have an evil villain and not have one that comes out of Germany for every superhero. You have to have one that comes out of Germany.
Yep.
And because it's Germany, they always have that super soldier serum origin story
Yep.
where it's testing
Hmm.
and something goes haywire and they get mutated and they have a physical mutation or biological mutation. And the most German name ever, Hans, and he becomes the swarm
Yep.
of giant bees make up his human body.
Yep.
The toy was goofy as hell, but still so cool and so 90s. I know this character came out earlier than 90s, but they really try to play into the whole cape and gloves uh, artist aesthetic during that time period because you had Hobgoblin, you had Green Goblin, you had
Right.
the Hood, you had
Hmm.
all these uh, kind of hooded, gloved, Joker-esque mouthed, facial featured villains.
Right.
And I remember the Swarm having the same thing: yellow body, purple hood, and I'm like, this is so cheesy. But then again, it's hundreds of thousands of bees together to form a body,
Well,
and
and they are surrounding, my understanding is that they're surrounding a skeleton too.
yeah, they are surrounding a skeleton. Yes,
Yes.
because I remember one of the ways he was defeated was that I think MJ got like a giant vacuum cleaner and sucked up all the bees,
I
and
mean,
then
I
the
was
skeleton just fell.
I was just thinking about that. I'm like, how would I defeat him? I'd probably try to vacuum him up. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, that's hilarious. Did you play the PS4 Spider-Man game?
I did not. I did
Okay.
not play the PS4. Was he in there?
He isn't in there, but J. Jonah
Is he referenced?
Jameson has a podcast in the game, and you occasionally hear clips from it. And at
Okay.
one point, he's just yelling about the kinds of villains that Spider-Man attracts. And one of the things he says is Nazi bees. And I was like, there we go. We got a swarm reference, everybody. So
But
it
yes, the swarm.
it,
It,
it it's weird too, because the swarm on one hand is a silly as hell villain, and then on the other hand, it's like, Nazi scientist who is made up of bees that could swarm me. Yeah, that does. I would not want to oppose this guy, you know.
No,
And
no.
it's just, you know, these things can really run the gamut too, because like, you know, again, on paper, oh my God, that's silly. Why would you make this supervillain?
Hmm.
But I mean, what are comics for other than to try out some of the nuttiest ideas you can come
Yeah,
up with, you know? And yeah, no,
the
it's
Swarm.
the swarm. Yeah,
I
no,
mean, I mean, they could even modernize him now to be the Murder Hornet Swarm, to kind of
yeah.
modernize it now. Because what's more terrifying than bees? You know, everybody's seen the movie My Girl. They know what happens when you eat bees. They know what happens.
Yes.
You know, Macaulay Culkin, rest in peace. You know, we know what happens. Now modernize it with murder hornets. He upgraded. That's terrifying.
That is
That is so
terrifying.
terrifying.
Oh my God. That could get dark real quick. I love it.
It could.
Oh
It definitely
man.
could.
Okay, all right. Let's see. What are we on? That was your fourth pick,
That was
right?
my fourth. That was my
Okay,
fourth.
all right. So
Yeah.
number four for me is actually a version of Spider-Man himself.
Okay.
Okay. Um, I'm gonna kind of draw this out because I wanna give you the opportunity to guess who it is. Okay. So what happens, you know, like we're all familiar with the tale, right? Peter Parker gets bitten, he gets these powers, and you know, bit of he has kind of one of those days afterwards where he's like sick, you know, and
Hmm.
he sleeps it off and he wakes up and he's buff and he doesn't need his glasses anymore.
Yeah.
And but he's got all these cool abilities and it's all, you know, fine and dandy. So what if that spider bite though, it gives you these abilities, but yeah, that's not all they give you. They start to change you, and I don't mean just in kind of the ways that we would conventionally like to be changed. What if suddenly you start developing, you know, like the little fangs or pincers or something? What
Okay.
if you start to hunger for human flesh? Can you guess at who I'm?
Ooh. Okay. I was going on the track of Man Spider, but when you said hunger for flesh,
Well,
uh,
he kind of did. Now, Man Spider. I'm not familiar with that name offhand, but it could be my character. Can you, in your estimation, who is Man Spider?
so Man Spider, I believe, very first appeared in the '90s animated series where Spider-Man
Okay,
was mutating,
okay,
and one of the episodes he turned into basically a giant hairy spider.
right,
But in the comics, they had to follow the cartoon because people love the cartoon series. So they kind of made him a man spider there, where he was more like he changed into a spider for a little bit, but then they cured him and he went back to normal,
of course,
like
yeah.
in the late '90s.
So
Um,
that's not who I'm going for.
okay,
So you read the Spider-Verse comics, right?
yes,
Okay. Did you read the Edge of Spider-Verse, like the ones that introduced different spiders before the Spider-Verse story began? In that series,
no.
Spider-Gwen made her first appearance.
So I don't want to say I stopped reading comics, but my comic reading and box pull days were put on hold right before that
Okay.
because that's when I had my that's my daughter was born, and I kind of had to use my free time of reading to deal with her.
Okay.
Um, so my last
Then
reading time was like middle of Superior.
okay, so then I have got a story to tell you. Okay, so in Edge of Spider-Verse, it introduced a bunch of like I think the first one had Spider-Man Noir, who we'd seen before.
Yeah, we've
But
seen
then it
before.
introduced Spider-Gwen and then like Penny Parker and a
Hmm.
couple of other spiders. One of whom was not named Peter Parker, his name was Patton Parnell, all right? And it was like what if you set Spider-Man and made the Spider-Man origin story into a horror movie?
Okay.
And that's what this basically was. Patton Parnell, kind of like Peter, social outcast, but he was also just really creepy. Dude liked to kill bugs under magnifying glasses and stuff like that. Okay. gets bit by the spider and starts to change,
Okay.
and eventually just starts figuring out, like, he lives with his abusive uncle, who's an analog for Uncle Ben. It's like Uncle
Hmm.
Ted or something like that. Okay, like they're trying to separate it a little bit, but you get,
Yeah, I get it.
you
I
get
get
the
it.
parallels. And he just starts to transform, and I think his first major victim is actually his abusive uncle, where he just like strings him up in a web and just starts to I don't think he eats him. I might have gotten the eating people wrong. I think it might be more like Alien, where he's using people to like lay eggs in them and basically bring out more of his children, I
Oh
guess.
wow. So it's got the whole aliens aspect too.
Little bit. And so there's a girl in there who's a stand-in for Mary Jane, who takes some, like, she's nice to him, I suppose. He
Hmm.
becomes obsessed with her and everything, and it is a very dark story. I mean, it is just one issue. And I remember
Okay.
reading it, and like by the time I was done, and spoiler for like a 10-year-old comic at this point, but by the time Moreland shows up at the end and kills this guy off, you're
Hmm.
basically relieved. You're like, oh my God, thank you. Like, it was one of the only times that Moreland has ever shown up, and I'm like rooting for him, you
Wow.
know? And the thing is, the very last panel after the MJ stand-in, I can't remember her name, after her encounter with Patton, I think he scratched her, or he bit her or something.
Hmm.
She's looking in the mirror. Something's moving under her skin on her face. And well, we've talked about scary stories to tell in the dark. And it's like they took that image right from that story.
Oh
And
wow.
that's how it ends.
Wow.
And yeah, that uh, like, I don't know, this might be an unfair entry because he's actually a variant of Spider-Man, but in my
Hmm.
opinion, he's still a villain.
Oh yeah, he's still a villain.
And it was like they kind of were like, oh, okay, let's do Spider-Man, but as a horror story. There's a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
body horror in that story. There's a lot of like stalking your victims and using them for um I don't remember if it's food or vessels or something, but
Yeah.
it it is a genuinely disquieting story. And this foe, this version of Spider-Man, was just like, okay, yeah, Moreland, you can have him. Go ahead and eat him, you know.
Okay.
But yeah, no, that one definitely left an impression on me. So
Yeah, that one does sound kind
yeah.
of creepy. Wow. Uh wow, okay. I mean, I mostly pick villains on this one. Cuz my number 5 uh is a villain.
Okay.
Uh but not the version people mostly think of. Well, fans now might know this version of this villain
Okay.
just because they updated it. They got rid of the the copycat weapons that he had from
All
another
right.
villain.
Okay.
Uh, Much like everything else in the 2000s, if you give it wings, it makes it cooler. If you give it a sword, it makes it cooler. This was also the if you collect action figures, especially Marvel Legends, this was the most sought out build a figure set in Marvel Legends outside of I believe Sentinel or Juggernaut. So I'm talking about is Phil Urich Hobgoblin.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
They
the
gave him the
newest.
wings. Yeah, they gave him the wings. They gave him the flaming sword. He became the not so I'm not a Green Goblin color skin knockoff. They made him
Right.
more. He was more violent. He was murdering people with the sword. He was taking them out. A person that he thought was a love interest rival, he was stalking and attacking to kill. He went toe to toe with the Kingpin because he wanted his empire.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Not because he was a good guy, but because he just wanted the money. He
Yeah.
wanted the income.
Yeah.
That was it.
I
But
remember.
he was murdering
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, I remember reading some of those comics too, and man, Phil Urich, whew, dude, I was like, you are a pathetic human being, you know?
Yeah,
But like, but the dude, he was a pathetic human being who had some serious firepower and was not afraid to use
yeah.
it, you know?
Well, it's funny because he started off as the hero Green Goblin, because he found one of Norman's secret hideouts
Hmm.
and took over as the Green Goblin during the whole Onslaught
Right.
storyline. But then, like Norman, he became crazy and insane, and he found one of the old hobgoblins, killed him, took his mantle, redesigned everything, took it over, and just started murdering people. But he's got that hobgoblin mask that, to
Right.
me, is more scarier than the Green Goblin mask, because of the hood and the cape and the aesthetic of just, that pale skin that, whenever he was drawn in with heavy shadowing, looks creepy as hell. Just
I
looks
mean,
scarier.
yeah, the kind of aesthetic that I got from that, and I think I'm remembering the right version. He looked kind of like a burn victim, like with that
Yeah.
shading, you know. But yeah, no, no. And the thing is, he was a vicious foe too. I mean,
Yeah, he was.
he didn't he have some kind of like a sonic scream attack that like could basically incapacitate Spider-Man for brief periods of time too? Something like that?
Yeah. He had a sonic scream attack that would either incapacitate, or it would have like EMP like abilities. So if you had electronics, it would shut
Yes.
everything down.
Yes.
Because
Okay.
that's how he took out the Sentinels during Onslaught, was that he used the sonic scream, but he can only use it like 3 times before the vocals would wear out. But it would take out Sentinels.
Interesting. Okay. No, that's a good choice. And I mean the thing is, like, yeah, if you're so much as a just like a romantic rival for this guy, you're
Hmm.
basically on his hit list, you
Yeah, he's
know?
gonna take you out
If
just
if if
for
you're any kind of inconvenience, he's just like, yeah, no, you're dead, you know?
yeah.
And I think that more than anything is what freaks me out about that character. Like it's sort of like someone who like uses the force to swat a fly, you know?
Yes.
Like, oh my God, seriously, dude? But you don't want to be on the receiving end of that
No.
list, you know?
Don't swipe left on Phil Urich. Don't
Yeah.
do that.
He doesn't handle rejection well,
He
guys.
doesn't.
You
He
know?
doesn't.
All right. Um, my fifth pick is okay. I think I'm just gonna come out and say who this one is because I found him and I was like, whoa, who is this? And why have I not heard of him? And then when I read who he was, I'm like, how did I not know that? Do you know who Robot Master is?
Robot. I remember, what was it, Overdrive, the guy who could like plug into a car and like soup up the car, gives a Spider-Man villain.
Yeah, not
And,
him.
I've heard
Not
of Magnus Robot Fighter as a comic book nerd.
so there is okay, here's a name for you. Mendel Strom. Mendel Strom was Norman Osborn's business partner when he was developing the serum that eventually became the Goblin formula.
Yeah.
He basically screwed Strom over, and Strom was one of the people that helped develop it, so a very, very smart guy.
Hmm.
Basically screwed him over, got him in prison, and he has been trying forever to get his revenge on Norman Osborn. He does so by creating these robots that go out to kill him.
Yeah.
Well, apparently, Strom eventually dies and has his mind put into like a robot body. And so he basically becomes Robot Master who could control like mechanical beings and everything. And the idea behind it for me is just this the kind of like body horror of a guy who his mangled body his brain is taken out of it, kind of like,
Okay.
Octavius when he swapped with Peter kind of thing. But you put him in these robot bodies that are not like, they're designed to kill, and they're these just this kind of like, I don't want to segmented is the word that comes to mind.
Okay.
and like he just looks like he is the master of like an abattoir standing over a bunch of like corpses, that he's killed. And it's just kind of like one of these like, what if you actually did this to a person, and what is he going to look like, kind of thing. And the fact that he could potentially, create and control a bunch of other robots that he could just kind of unleash on his foes, just kind of one of those things that made me go,
Okay,
yeah.
I see what he looks like now. He looks like Deathlock.
Yeah, I guess you could say he looks a little bit like Deathlock. I would say Deathlock is he looks a bit more put together and better than this guy. But yeah, like basically scientific brain in a body, like in a
Yeah,
robotic body that is, I don't know. For me, it's mostly the visual.
yeah,
It's
like
the
he is
visual,
visually
and
terrifying.
yeah, and so I could see someone designing a story around that that would just make me go, ooh, yeah, I don't know if I want to read this. Hell, I don't know if I would want to write that. I would probably give myself nightmares. But yeah, for me, Robot Master is pick number 5. So
That is a deep, deep cut. I would have never thought of RoboMaster. And
yeah,
looking at him now, I'm like, that he looks like Death. He looks like a Deathlock.
yeah,
He looks like one of the robot zombie type of characters.
yeah.
So wow.
So yeah, very much so. Do we want to go for a sixth pick, or do we want to cap this?
Or we can give we can give some participation trophies to some of these
Okay.
other villains.
All right.
Uh, if I'm going to give two participation trophies away or awards to two more villains, I'm going to give one to Doppelganger. If you ever seen Doppelganger,
Yep.
six-armed Spider-Man with the venom-like teeth,
Yep.
but the eyes get me. The waffle cone
The
eyes,
yeah, the multifaceted, yeah, like
that gets me. And he is another one of those characters that's no brain, it's all animal instinct. He fights with an animal instinct. The first time him and Spider-Man squared off was during, I think, the Infinity Saga,
yes.
where Spider-Man barely beat him by having him fall and impale himself on a fence, a church fence.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I remember that. Yeah.
so that, yeah, nods, tip of the hat to that character.
Okay. All
Second
right.
one, I got to give it up. You mentioned Carnage earlier.
Mm-hmm.
One of my biggest visuals was Venom. Whenever he returned
Yep.
and he was tormenting Mary Jane, and the use of the shadows, all you see is the eyes and the smile and that spider symbol and the shadows
Yep.
as he's like tormenting Mary Jane and leaving her in a mental state of fragility. That has always stuck in my mind. So
That is a good
Venom,
one. Yeah.
Venom and Doppelganger, I'm giving you, tips of the hats. You didn't make my list, but you came close enough to get some recommendations. So those are my two.
Okay. All right. No, and those are excellent picks. Venom and Doppelganger were both on my list. For my own part, I think let's see. I gotta give it up for the lizard
Yes.
because again, talking about animal instincts, he's one of those that like if he and Spider-Man are just like in a room or a
Hmm.
sewer where Peter just can't swing around and get away. If they're just fighting,
Yeah.
I might have to put some money on the lizard because man,
Yeah.
dude is as strong, as fast. He's got fangs, he's got claws, he's got a tail, like, and he can do a lot of what Spider-Man can do,
He can.
and he's usually bigger than Spider-Man.
Yep.
No, one of the reasons I'm also giving it up for the lizard is because he's one of the featured villains in the upcoming Spider-Man game, as is Craven, as
Okay.
is Venom, and so like lots of creepiness to go around, hopefully.
He is on my list for one reason only. One reason.
What's
There's
that?
always there's always been a cardinal sin or a cardinal thing in comics. You know,
Uh-oh.
kids.
Mm-hmm.
You stay away from the kids.
Yep.
I remember when Spider-Man cells were lacking at one point, and they did something with Lizard that they were never supposed to touch. Lizard killed his own son
Yep.
and left him in a dumpster and left the body in the dumpster.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I remember having to read those panels over and over and over just to let it settle in because I'm like, they didn't just do this. No, Billy has always been safe. He's always been safe no matter what. And yeah,
No,
I agree with that.
I totally get that. And yeah, no, that's one of those moments where it's like, yikes. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know. And then for my second pick, let's see. I mean, there are so many good ones. I guess for me, if I just have to pick one more, we're gonna go with Vulture Noir. The
Oh, the geek,
Vulture, yeah,
the
the
geek.
Vulture from Spider-Man Noir's reality. Not only did he kill Peter Parker's Uncle Ben, but basically that Vulture is a cannibal.
Yes,
He ate Uncle Ben,
he did.
and yeah. And the thing is, have you played Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions?
I did, and I played that game. I loved it for one. Well, one of the reasons why I did it was because one of the voice actors, Crystal Daniel Barnes, returned to reprise his role as a Spider-Man voice,
Yeah.
and
So
I
did the other three.
so did the other three.
Yeah.
But Christopher Daniel Barnes, I loved his voice in the '90s animated series. He came back. I had to play it, but
So did you beat it? Because
yes, I did.
I did not beat it. Okay. I know that Vulture he's one of the bosses that Noir fights.
Let's see. Wait,
Oh yeah, I remember that fight.
2099 was that was Doc Ock.
There was
Uh,
a version of I think Hobgoblin for
no,
2099.
Hammerhead was in Noir because
Yeah,
you had to hide in the
Hammerhead was in
shadows.
Noir, but
Yeah.
so was Vulture.
Okay, and Deadpool was an Ultimate
I think so, yes.
because he has a little
Craven was an amazing.
crazy. Yeah, Craven was an amazing. I'm trying to remember now because what stands out is I remember having to hide in the shadows with Noir because
Uh-huh.
Hammerhead had that Gatling gun.
Yes.
But then I'm also taken back when I play Ultimate because Deadpool, as you're fighting Deadpool, he's narrating his own fight
Yeah,
as he's doing.
yes.
And then whenever you go to different rounds, he comes out as a ring girl to signify the next stage.
That's awesome. I don't think I ever beat him, so I don't think that ever happened to me. That's great. But yeah,
But
no, he's in there. At least I want to say he was in there. I'm pretty
I think
sure I
he
had to
is.
fight him.
I think he
Um
is.
and he is a scary looking dude. I mean,
Yes.
he is I don't like using the word savage, but it's difficult to find another word. Vicious, I
Yes.
guess, just
Vicious. Yeah.
describes him, I guess, to a T.
Yeah.
He looks like he's barely human,
Yeah.
and the look in his eyes says, I'm going to rip out your heart with my teeth and swallow it, essentially.
Yeah. I think
And
he was like the pet of the Sinister Six, right? He was like their
I think
technically
so.
their pet because
Yeah,
they would feed him livestock. Yeah, like he would eat like chicken, like live
I
chickens,
could
and he would
see
eat
that. I could see that being
like
a thing.
pigs and dogs, and he would eat animals
Yeah.
to keep them like satisfied until they needed to interrogate or threaten somebody.
Okay, I've actually got two more, or no, I've got one more honorable mention that I
Okay.
think is his in his own category here, because in order for this to count, you have to basically find like I think it's the Spider-Man Batman crossover storyline. Scarecrow,
Okay.
Scarecrow and the fear
Okay.
toxins. You
Okay.
know, so yeah, is a little cheat. That's why I'm going to give him a very special honorable
Okay.
mention. But Jonathan Crane, the cousin of Frasier and
I
Niles,
thought you were gonna go for Carnage Joker.
Carnage Joker.
I thought you were going that aspect.
No. I wanted to just go with Scarecrow, just straight up Scarecrow. Because he's a Batman villain, yes, but for at least one story, he was also a Spider-Man villain, and
No, well, I remember the whole Marvel versus DC cards, the trading cards that they made during that
hmm
series.
hmm
They had a Scarecrow versus Scarecrow story, like a card.
really,
So yeah, they had a Scarecrow
huh?
versus Scarecrow card.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, I learn something new every day, you know?
I got to dig out my trading cards because I still have that line, that Marvel versus DC trading card set
Okay.
or parts of it. I never finished it, but I have those cards. And I remember Scarecrow versus Scarecrow because Clark Kent wrote the back of the card. In character wrote the back of the card, and it's so well. If you got the cards, you got a little synopsis in the back, either written by Clark Kent or written by Peter Parker, because they both work for newspapers.
Oh
So
yeah, okay.
so you got like a little paragraph on the back that talked about it.
Okay. Very
So
cool. Very cool. I'll have to find that at some point. Or if you have it and want to send me a screenshot, I'd love that too. So,
yeah.
all right. Well, let's go ahead and we're going to start to wrap up here. So, the horrific, scary, and disquieting has always captivated me. So,
Hmm.
it's been frightening fun to discuss this topic to start off the month of October. Aaron, uh, where can people find you online?
All right. So I'm repping Front Row Negative tonight. That's my podcast. That's my YouTube channel. You can find us on YouTube, Front Row Negative, where I supply a lot of unboxing videos that I get for honest reviews. I'm not paid by those companies. I buy those things myself, or I try to find coupon codes to get those items to unbox, review, and give honest opinions. Because, like everybody else, you see those ads pop up on social media. You want to check them out, but you're kind of afraid to. If I have a good coupon code or discount, I'm taking that gamble. And there have been some bad gambles, there have been some good gambles. So I'm always popping those up. We have a podcast for Row Negative that's been on hiatus, but me and my bro Chris, we are recording some stuff because it is Halloween. We love doing Halloween brackets. We love to make horror fans mad with our picks of what movie is better than the other movie. And if you followed us last year, um, I always get a lot of shade from people who still compliment that Satanic Rites of Dracula, the movie, should not have progressed as far as it did. And I'm like, hey, that wasn't my choice. I throw shade at that movie. The other two people, it's a 2 to 3 vote. They won. So that's how we get content. We are on Instagram at Front Row Negative. We are on YouTube. We are on Facebook. We're not on X, formerly known as Twitter, yet. I've been saying that for about a year and a half now. I'm going to keep saying that for a year and a half from now later. Uh, and that's it. You can follow my co-host Chris Foreman. He is an artist. Follow on Instagram, Chris Foreman Artist. He's always popping up his art things that he does. He's done art for trading cards like Tops and Upper Deck. I know he's done some Spider-Man art cards that he's submitted and stuff like that. Done some for them too. So follow him as well. So give him a little shout out. So yeah,
And I think
follow
I've
us there.
actually I think I've actually worked with Chris back when I was with another library system and did some comics related programming with him actually. So that's
Possibly.
good to see that he's still in that area. So
Oh yeah, he's doing it. He loves it, and he's always selling his artist proofs. So if you see one of the cards that he's done designs for or done the art for, message him. He will make you a good deal for like for original artist art.
very nice. Okay. I appreciate you coming onto the show and chatting with me about Spidey's horror themed foes with me. I know that we both had fairly extensive lists. We certainly didn't get to
Yes,
everybody.
yes.
And I feel like perhaps at some point we may want to consider doing like a tier list episode where we can kind of like rank them and then just talk briefly about them and then move on to the next one.
Well,
Um,
there's that, but with horror movies, the one thing that sells the most, the sequel.
that's true. That's very true. I don't know. Maybe we could do that next year.
We can make people wait till next year.
Yeah,
What will
yeah.
make the list next year? What will happen next year?
Yeah. You never knew. We got a whole nother year for them to give us more spooky horror themed content. So,
That is true.
all right. So, and before we wrap up, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go into one more segment that I am introducing, tentatively titling it Web Spinner's Recommendation, where I and my guest, if there is one with me, will make a recommendation of some sort. And we're going to head into that right now. So, Aaron, you are a horror movies aficionado.
I
And
am.
I would imagine horror content in general. I don't know for certain, but I'm guessing you probably watch horror like shows, probably read, horror novels or comics or something like that.
Yes, I do.
Have you played any horror video games, anything like that?
I usually do.
Okay. Okay.
It depends on the content because I do have kids, so it kind of
Right.
it's hard to play the it's hard to play horror theme games around the kids that doesn't have like a good joking or good kind of funny content to it. That way they can laugh it off.
Okay.
But at the same time, I do love playing horror games whenever I can. And so, yeah, all that I read, comics, the movies, the TV shows, all that. I'm a big appreciator of all things horror.
Well, with it being Spooktober here, I was curious as to what piece of horror media would you recommend to any of our listeners out here for the web line?
Ooh, okay. So if I'm going the movie route, one movie that I'm always constantly recommending as a semi gateway in, old horror fans will watch it and get the references. New horror fans will watch it to kind of get a backstory and you get a good uh, type of a respect for horror movies.
Okay.
And one I always recommend is called Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon. It is a mockumentary styled horror film of kind of like think of like Behind the Music, but with
Okay.
a slasher element.
Interesting. Okay.
Very well done. Um, the only character that's in that movie that people might recognize, if you are a fan of the movie Home Alone, the original, one of the sisters is in this as the protagonist.
Okay.
And if you're a horror fan, you'll recognize a lot of cameos and a lot of references.
Okay.
But again, it's just a good, fun movie that people sleep on and don't expect.
All
Uh,
right.
I always recommend it out. People seem to love it. People seem to agree with me when I say, "Have you seen this yet? Go check it out." Another
And
movie.
what
Mhm.
what was it called?
It's called Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and then if you love something scary, you love something that's just gonna basically mess with your mind, and you have to have something that's really haunting. I know found footage has been the go-to for a lot of movies recently.
Right.
Paranormal Activity. You have like The Last Exorcism. You have Blair Witch, Cloverfield. Everybody loves found footage movies to a degree. One I recommend all the time is called Grave Encounters. If you can find it, it is very well done. It is very haunting, and it doesn't have the shaky cam that a lot of people hate. Motion sickness. It's just a good overall good movie. Highly
Okay.
recommend that one as well.
Okay. I love
Uh,
Cloverfield, by the way. That's
oh, I
actually one
love
of my
Cloverfield.
favorites.
Love
Um,
Cloverfield.
if I were to make a couple of recommendations myself, I'm gonna go I'm gonna go the route of what do we call it? Serial shows. I mean,
Okay.
I have a hard time calling it serial TV these days because it's not really TV. It's all on the web now. So, but there is a show that I really like that I need to watch. There have been more seasons of it since, but
Hmm.
the show itself is called Two Sentence Horror Stories.
Yes. Yes.
I freaking love it. It's an anthology show, so there's
Hmm.
no consistent cast or anything. But essentially what they do is they take a two sentence horror story, and you can find those on the internet. They're easy to Google. But they take a two sentence horror story and then they make basically a 20 to 30-minute story out of it. And
Yes.
some of them are okay, some of them just knock it right out of the park. And what I really enjoy about it is just the sheer variety because like they give you the story first and then you get the two sentence horror story at the end to kind of like
Yes.
show you where they got it from. So
Yes.
that's one good piece of horror content that I would recommend if you like the scary stuff. It's not like terribly graphic, but you know there are definitely some jump scares in there. And then
Definitely.
and then if you haven't seen it, I would recommend the Haunting of Hill House on Netflix.
Yep.
Um, it's interesting because I haven't read it. I know that it's been adapted, but I
Hmm.
think one of the scariest things about it is that, you know, it's a story about this very dysfunctional family trying to come together after one of them dies, and then you've got this manor that this family house that they all grew up in, which was haunted, and you've got a lot of just ghosts that are in the background of the story that are just there. And
Hmm.
it's just like you're like wow, okay, I didn't catch that before, you know. It's a really good move, or it's a really good series
Yeah.
that will it will reward you with scares if you are like one of those eagle-eyed people looking in the background
Yeah.
for something, you
Definitely.
know. So
Definitely.
so those are my two recommendations, just kind of from that. So, but this is going to be a new segment where I try to kind of elicit recommendations for media for my listeners from my guests and myself, of
Hmm.
course. And so, since it's October, that's what we're going to do. So, Aaron, thank you for the recommendations. Much appreciated.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's
Yeah.
been an amazing time to talk Spider-Man.
Yes, this is great. I always enjoy. I found that a lot of my listeners' feedback has been like, "Hey, we like it more when you have a guest. We like it more
Okay.
when you have someone to kind of bounce off of." So, which I was only able to get, I think, for the next 5 episodes, I was only able to get like 3 guests. But
Hmm.
you know, that's one of the challenges of being a podcaster. I'm finding
Yeah.
out. So, um, I'm going to go ahead and move us into the outro. If you enjoyed this episode of The Webline, please be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on my YouTube channel, simply named Spidey Librarian, where I also maintain a playlist of all podcast episodes. The Webline also is available on audio services, so when you see us on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, or another such service, please leave a review, rating, and where possible, follow us as well. You can find me on my socials under the name Spidey Librarian on Threads, Twitter/X, Instagram, Facebook, WordPress, and Twitch. Finally, if you'd like to shoot me an email, you can contact me at spideylibrarian@gmail.com, where I'll be happy to hear your thoughts, rants, and ideas. You never know, your email might be featured on an upcoming episode. Be sure to join us next week as the Spooktober theme continues. I'll be flying solo for the next character spotlight episode, which is focused on a villain that we discussed briefly in this episode, the ever evolving antagonist known only as Freak. Why am I covering this fascinating, relatively obscure terror from the Brand New Day era? You'll have to tune in on October 8th to find out. Thank you for listening, and until the next episode, I'll be wishing you a good day. Bye.